Russia says its homemade COVID-19 vaccine is not only just as effective as its rivals, it's going to be half the price. Developers of Sputnik V are hailing their two-shot vaccine, claiming it is 95% effective. The World Health Organization is reported to be talking to the team behind the treatment, but there's no endorsement as yet. Officials say the full dose will cost less than $20 a person on international markets, and it will be free of charge for Russian citizens. No adverse side effects were reported during the trial. Julia Chapman joins us live from Moscow. Now, Julia, what has the WHO had to say about Sputnik V so far?
Well, about a month ago, Russia applied to the WHO for Sputnik V to receive pre-qualification and emergency use status. That process is still underway. It's being reviewed by the WHO, and the WHO hasn't yet commented on the latest data that we've received today. In fact, no vaccine candidate around the world has yet received that status. It requires quite a lot of reviewing of the data from the clinical trials from phase 3 that is going on here in Russia and in a number of other countries around the world. But the WHO says it is working with Russia on Sputnik V, trying to exchange information and trying to get a better sense of what this vaccine candidate can offer the world. But it does stress that there can be no vaccine that jumps the queue. They need all the safety and efficacy data before this can go forward. And of course, the reason for concern here is that Russia registered Sputnik V here in the country by regulators as early as August 11th, and that was before phase 3 of the clinical trials even got underway. So it was a really accelerated process. Russian developers say that's not a problem. They're just trying to move things along quickly, but they're not jumping any steps. But there are some critics who suggest that the very fact that it was registered in advance means that there is really no other outcome than success for the Russian vaccine.
Now, could you also explain how the efficacy was calculated with this two-shot vaccine?
So the data that we've been given today comes from the Russian Direct Investment Fund, the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund that has been bankrolling the production of Sputnik V and all the other vaccine candidates here in Russia. And we've got a glimpse of some of the mid-trial data from the phase 3 of clinical trials of Sputnik V. And they say that some 19,000 volunteers have received both doses of Sputnik V. It's a 2-dose jab, and they are different doses. They are 2 different adenovirus viral vectors that will be bringing small trace amounts of the virus into the human body, and those 2 stages have been passed by 19,000 volunteers. And among that group of people, there have only been 39 cases of COVID-19 contraction afterwards. And they say that this data has been taken on day 42 after the first jab, at which point 95% efficacy was found in preventing infection against COVID-19. So the Russian developers are really hailing this as a big success, comparing that figure to some of the other success stories we're seeing in vaccine trials around the world. But there are still some challenges ahead for Sputnik V.
Now, keeping in mind that there are several other promising COVID-19 vaccines in progress in other parts of the world, what sets Sputnik V apart from those vaccines?
Well, the developers say that this 2-jab vaccine is quite unique because although other vaccine candidates do also come in 2 doses, they're 2 doses of the exact same thing. It's more of a booster that you would get 3 or 4 weeks after the first jab. Sputnik V is different because they say that these 2 different jabs will offer fuller protection against COVID-19. We're also learning, though, today some other information about Sputnik V that's setting it apart, namely the price. It's going to be priced internationally at $10 a dose, so around $20 altogether. It's going to be free for all Russian citizens here inside Russia. And also, crucially, we've also learned more about the transportation of the Sputnik V once manufacturing has been ramped up, although there have been some issues with that inside Russia. But we understand that Sputnik V can be stored and transported at between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, which means there's no need for cold storage, no need for it to be frozen, which will make it much easier to transport around the world once it is finally ready to be issued worldwide when mass vaccination can begin.
Thanks for those updates. Julia Chapman, live in Moscow.